Hello and welcome to Supplier Soundbytes, Mobility Global's bite-sized Autology podcast series, where we sit down with industry experts to explore what's changing in automotive and why it matters. One topic, all in around 10 minutes. Today, we're exploring one of the biggest questions facing the automotive industry, how innovation is reshaping the future of mobility. Automakers are navigating an increasingly complex landscape. They need to deliver vehicles that are lighter, smarter, and more sustainable while responding to changing customer expectations, accelerating electrification, and building more resilient, circular value chains. Meeting those demands requires more than great engineering. It calls for closer collaboration, new thinking, and continued advances in materials science. Now, to help us explore how those trends are shaping the future of the industry, I'm delighted to welcome Monique Buch, Chief Commercial Officer at Covestro. Covestro is a global leader in high-performance polymer materials, working with automotive manufacturers and suppliers to develop innovative solutions that support vehicle design, performance, and sustainability. Monique, welcome. Thanks very much for joining us.
Good morning, Matthew. Very happy to be here.
Most welcome. To get us started, automakers today are being asked to make vehicles lighter, smarter, and more sustainable, often at the same time. Where do you see the biggest opportunities for innovation and differentiation emerging?
I think the biggest opportunity is really that we stop looking at it as separate elements and that we really look at it as an integrated requirement. So for many years, we've looked at lightweighting, safety, design, performance, and sustainability very being discussed in a way that it is individual topics basically to address. And today, the real value comes when we bring that all together. So the automotive industry needs solutions that solve several challenges all at once. And that is where advanced materials can really make a difference. They can help reduce the weight, enable new design concepts, improve durability, support safety, and contribute to a lower carbon footprint. This is especially important as vehicles become more electric, more digital, more experience driven as well. And materials do not longer only are kind of the hidden structural components, but they shape the vehicles, how they look, how they feel, how it performs, and how sustainability can be managed basically across that life cycle. So for me, differentiation will increasingly become from integrated material solutions. The strongest solutions are often those that do more than one thing at the same time. And because at the end of the day, customers want solutions without a compromise.
That's great. Thanks very much, Monique. Building on that, at a time when automotive companies are under pressure to innovate faster and managing costs and complexity, what does a true co-innovation partnership between suppliers and OEMs actually look like? And where can suppliers create the most value, would you say?
It starts with in any partnership is understanding each other. And I think a true co-innovation partnership starts with really understanding what is the ask of our customer, what is the ask of the market, of the consumer. And very often companies sell what they already have. And I think the intriguing element of innovation is that it becomes much more stronger if we can first ask and step, what problem are we actually trying to solve here?
Mm.
What does the OEM need to achieve for the vehicle, for the end consumer, for the business? And one of the things that intrigues me really is that there's been a study recently that showed that 70% of the salespeople sell something different than the buyer actually is buying. And that makes you really wonder how much effort we take to understand each other. And that is
Mm.
why the timing of collaboration matters that much. So if we can have the roadmap of an OEM as early as possible, that is super valuable. Because if a supplier is only involved at the end of the process, room for innovation is rather limited, I would say. But if we sit together early onwards, we can really help shape that solution faster, more focused, and of course, easier to scale. So an OEM may come with a challenge that says we need a lighter component, but it must be durable, attractive, easy to manufacture. Then it is our role to help translate that into the solution that works at industrial scale. So at Covestro, we bring material expertise, we bring a lot of application know-how built up over the years, processing experience, and understanding industrial production. that can really help avoid that we have to redesign the loops and hence can increase speed, that we reduce complexity and hence reduce costs, and that we can really accelerate the development, which is basically time to market, which all of us are experiencing as critical. So cost is really part of this conversation. So I believe the best partnerships are those where we jointly find a solution that delivers on the performance, the sustainability, the manufacturability in a cost-effective way. So in the end, the value of a supplier is the ability to translate customer needs into solutions that work in real vehicles at scale.
Very interesting indeed. Thanks very much for those insights, Monique. Looking beyond innovation, the process itself, the industry has spent decades perfecting engineering and manufacturing excellence. As customer expectations continue to evolve, where do you think the competitive advantage is shifting? And what role do materials and user experience play in that change, would you say?
Well, on one hand, engineering and manufacturing excellence will remain absolutely essential.
Mm,
But competitive advantage is becoming much broader than those two elements, I would say. So it's beyond the technical optimization. It's also about that total experience a vehicle creates, how it feels, how intuitive it is,
yeah,
how comfortable, how sustainable, and how well it fits into the people's changing mobility expectations. So if I now drive home at the end of the day, it almost feels like your car brings you home, which is a very different experience than, let's say, a decade ago.
yeah,
So materials play a very important shift in this. They influence that touch, the appearance, the comfort, the acoustics, the lighting effects, durability, as well as what we perceive as high quality. So especially in that interior, materials can make technology feel much more human, more intuitive, and
mm,
give that premium feeling. So in that way, user experience and sustainability are becoming much closer connected. So customers still expect high performance and attractive designs that will not change, but they also want that the solutions are responsible and future oriented.
very interesting. Thank you very much. One of the biggest drivers is that shift is electrification. Now, electric vehicles are changing much more than the drivetrain. They're reshaping expectations around design, comfort, and functionality. How is that influencing the way companies approach innovation, and what does that mean for the role of advanced materials?
Yeah, electrical vehicles have changed that whole innovation logic in automotive because they change the architecture of the vehicle. And for me, it's always interesting if you look back, the first cars look really like a carriage still. And the first electrical vehicles still had that bump in the middle where you
Mm,
have normally your transmission going through. But once now, what we see is that the drivetrain is changing, many other areas are going to be rethought as well, whether it's the battery system, the thermal management, crash safety, lightweighting construction, interior spaces, and that digital user experience. So EV innovation is about really redesigning that whole vehicle around new functions and new expectations. And that creates a much bigger role for advanced materials. So in an EV, materials need to contribute to that efficiency and range, but also to safety, durability, to comfort and design freedom, because we have much more of that. And they need to support demanding applications such as all these battery components, the thermal management, that lightweighting structure, and high quality interiors. And at the same time, the interior is becoming increasingly important as vehicles become more connected and increasingly automated. The cabin becomes next to the inside of the car also a space for comfort, for interaction and personal experience. So that means that surfaces, lighting, haptic, and acoustics become all part of that value proposition. And specifically, I would say in the recent years, when we travel more, we typically have those video calls in the car because you have the background, so nobody sees where you are. But until very recent, if you have a high confidential conversation, people could hear that on the outside due to the acoustics. So you could not have that. But nowadays, with materials, and we have one of those materials, Arfinio, that also has that acoustical value, you can feel that absorption basically of your voice and you will not hear it
Mhm.
outside. So materials become increasingly important in that feel for how you drive in that car. And that means for us, for companies like Covestro, that is really exciting because you can add more things and we can help connect that technical performance really with the design, with the user experience, and materials can enable all those smart surfaces in terms of seamless lighting concepts, durable interior solutions, lighter components, while we can also support those sustainability targets. So the role of advanced materials is expanding. They're helping define what the next generation of mobility not only is, but also how it feels like.
That's great. Some great points. Thank you. Just finally, looking to the future, circularity is becoming a business imperative rather than simply a sustainability goal. What will it take to accelerate progress across the automotive value chain, and where do you see the biggest opportunities for collaboration?
Circularity will only move faster. And if it is designed into that value chain from the beginning, that is helping to move it faster. But that does, as you say, require collaboration across basically from OEMs, from suppliers, recyclers, material producers, because we do need to have that common understanding of material choices. So we need to have a design that enables recycling where we have traceability of materials in to understand how we can recycle that, and it has a quality requirement and the scalability of supply of alternative raw materials. So one important point is that circular solutions must also meet that performance and cost expectation. And that is why collaboration is so critical. We need solutions that work technically, economically, and at industrial scale. And the biggest opportunity is to move from isolated projects to system level collaboration. And that system level collaboration, that means looking at the full life cycle of the material, from raw materials to products, use phases, but also the recycling, the reuse, and the potential second life applications that we have. So for me, circularity is about building more resilient and future ready value chains. And this is something I would love to call for collaboration along that whole value chain.
That's great. Monique, thank you very much indeed for sharing your insights there. And that's just about all we have time for this episode of Supplier Soundbytes from Mobility Global. Thank you very much for spending time with us. If you found this conversation useful, please do follow us on LinkedIn for more insights from across the supplier ecosystem and keep an eye out for new episodes coming soon. Bye for now.